Welcome back. Tonight, live in the Hot Box from Bismarck, Joel Heitkamp, host of News and Views. He's been our boots on the ground, getting ready for the big Governor Dalrymple's budget address tomorrow. Joel, I know you had a chance to visit with some people. You hosted a panel today of some of the legislative leaders. What are you hearing on the ground about the upcoming budget address? Anything shocking that we can anticipate tomorrow as what you've heard so far?
Well, you're going to see some money leaving. I mean, no doubt about that. From what I'm hearing from my sources, there's a lot of one-time spending. Not a lot of spending that's going to be in place year after year after year, but a lot of one-time spending, whether it comes in the form of property tax relief, income tax relief, or corporate income tax relief, which I've yet to figure out why that is a priority in this budget. But what I will tell you is this: it's one-time funding. Close to $1 billion is what I'm hearing.
And you're saying you don't understand why the corporate income tax is being relieved?
Well, most of the corporations that are going to get this income tax break don't operate in North Dakota. But that's a small part of this whole budgetary item. Big loss, I think, in this budget that you're going to hear from the governor on for higher education tomorrow. They wanted 30-some new FTEs. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that. The number I'm hearing could be as little as 7, which means they're not going to even get the 7. Because if the governor starts at 7, you're never going to see this conservative legislature get anywhere close to 7 as they carve away at this budget.
So where do you think the higher ed budget ends up? I know you said today they're asking for another $84 million to put them at $600 million over the course of the biennium. It's like a 16% increase. It's already a giant chunk of our state budget here in the state. At the end of the day, where do you think this higher ed budget ends up when we close and wrap up this legislative session?
Well, interesting enough, today at the North Dakota Rural Telephone Conference that I was at, and I emceed a panel with every one of the leaders. You had Kent Nonstead, the new minority leader in the House. You had Max Schneider, the new minority leader in the Senate. You had Rich Wardner, the majority leader in the Senate, and Al Carlson, the majority leader in the House. I asked each one of them that question, Chris, and each one of them I said, is this what Ham Shivani is offering, is this a non-starter? And they all kind of looked at each other, and I didn't get a real positive response for them for higher education. I don't think they're going to get anywhere near what they're asking.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I hear a lot of negatives going on there. I want to move on to the property tax relief. We had Measure 2 going on last June. This is going to be, I think, the big thorn in the side for the legislators. I've heard that Governor Dalrymple is going to do a bigger buy down of property taxes locally, around $800 million. Here's my issue, Joel. It still doesn't solve the problem. Still doesn't get to the mill levy rate. Still doesn't get to the property assessments. Are you hearing the same thing? Number one, is this going to be more and a bigger buy down? Are they actually going to start to get to the root of this problem and start solving it here in North Dakota?
Well, I'm a Democrat and the governor's a Republican, but I will tell you this. I don't know how he fixes this. And here's the problem, Chris. It lies in what's going on out there right now. In western North Dakota, you have homes that were worth $20,000 that are now worth $150,000. In eastern North Dakota, you have farmland that a couple years ago was worth $3,000, $2,000 an acre that's now being sold for $10,000 an acre. And so if you're the governor and you're trying to wrap your arms around this very issue, and yet the assessors themselves are going to come out and say, look, this is what your property is now valued at based upon current sales. I'm not sure if you're Jack Dalrymple, you can get your arm around that issue. But in fairness to him, Chris, it's big. It's real big.
But Joel, come on, let's start to change the fundamentals in this state. We've changed property tax equations so many times, it's almost disgusting. When is somebody going to step up and have a spine and say, look, this is wrong? You've got elderly people basically getting almost booted out of their homes. You've got people that are not going to be able to afford these taxes. We've got money in the coffers. Let's do the right thing for the people of North Dakota.
Well, Chris, I've been a champion of lowering property taxes my whole time that I served in the legislature. But how do you look someone into that camera you're looking into right now? Look them in the eye and say, you can't afford to pay property taxes when you just paid $10,000 for an acre of land. And that was a quarter of it. I mean, I don't know how you do that anymore. I don't know how you make that argument
But I'm
anymore.
not talking about...
With valuations going higher, it gets to be a harder argument to make. It's not as regressive when they're clearly making money on it.
Joel, are you...
And really what some of these farmers are doing, Chris, is they're basically putting the screws to their neighbors. That's what they're doing.
You know what I'm hearing, Joel? I think you're becoming a Republican. It sounds like you're fighting for those top 2%.
If I was fighting for a Republican, this budget wouldn't have just one-time negative kind of, oh, we're just only going to spend whatever we have in our checkbook and only a fifth of that. If I were really a Republican, if you want to solve property tax, put 100% funding on K-12 education out there. 100%. The state pays for it. Then you've done something about property tax.
But it's still not going to change what's going to happen, obviously, in the cities. Look, I want to talk to you about this one-time spending. I think it's the right thing to do. You know you've got it in the coffers. Joel, I'm assuming you don't trade oil futures. Do you know what the price of oil is going to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now? There's the unsettlement going on in the Middle East. I think it's the right move because we don't know what's going to happen to oil prices. You and I both know that price per barrel of oil goes below $50. This fracking, all this revenue dries up in a very fast amount of time.
Chris, I don't dispute that, but put yourself in the position of a county commissioner from Montreal or Dunn County. One-time funds come in. You're sitting there. You've got way bigger things that you need to do, and you don't got a commitment year after year from the state. What do? All you do is put that Band-Aid on that scab rather than fix the problem. And so, you know, I'm not convinced that oil country, while they're getting a big share of this, don't get me wrong, the governor clearly is putting money into Western North Dakota from my sources, but I'm not convinced that they're going to make a long-term commitment when they really don't know whether they get the money the next year.
Because I think what's going to happen, Joel, is they're going to change this oil extraction tax so more of the money starts to feed the counties, the local political townships, rather than it's all going to the state at this point. Joel, last question for you, and if you can be fairly brief on this one. The one thing I never understood about the North Dakota legislative session is the governor proposes his budget. You've acted before as a statewide senator. Why doesn't the Senate and the House create their own budget as well and have three of these things going at each other and then come up with some sort of nice compromise for the people of North Dakota?
Because they meet for 4 months every 2 years. They don't have the wherewithal to do it. It's not like Congress where they're in session all the time.
All right, Joel, thanks so much for your time from Bismarck. I'll see you tomorrow, Joel. And if you want to tune into the Governor Dalrymple's budget address, you can do so by going to our website, valleynewslive.com. We'll be streaming it live 10 a.m. tomorrow. Again, that's valleynewslive.com. Be ready for some very interesting information coming out of our governor. And by the way, tomorrow in the Hot Box, I'm heading out to Bismarck. I'll have Governor Dalrymple in the Hot Box tomorrow, right after his budget address. Stay with us. A shocking picture coming out of Arizona that is causing a huge ruckus. In my opinion, the PC garbage in this country has got to stop. We'll show you exactly what I'm talking about next right here on 630 Point of View.